All right, is everyone here? Congrats to both debaters for making it to the double octa finals of the Apple Valley tournament. The decision is a 3-0 for the negative from Stuyvesant.
Go ahead, Newman.
All right, I'll go first. So there are a couple of things. First is that I think that the negative is correct, that theory and fairness are questions that I should prioritize before substantive discussions. The reason being, it skews the negative's ability to test the truth or falsity of arguments that are made if they win a theoretical complaint with substance. So at that point, I think that you're kind of like authority-framed substance arguments kind of become less relevant. The second argument is that I just don't really have a compelling answer to this infinite regressive argument, which is that if moral authorities are the only way to understand judgments, then it relies on previous moral authorities and so on and so on and so on. You might have an argument, but that's another comment which is just kind of big for you, which is like I feel like you're blazing through analytics. So like there might be some parts of like this decision that you're like, oh, I totally answered that. But if you did, you didn't take the time to slow down or explain it or kind of like have very good organization. So I think that that's like an overall theme that I thought the negative did a much better job of kind of pounding a few important arguments on. So at that point, I have doubts about a moral authority. Another is now the other thing on theory, which is just kind of like the whole fairness on a voter thing. It doesn't seem like your argument's why fairness on a voter, it's like not a voter at all, right? It's just like fairness can be like there are reasons why fairness isn't important as other things. So at that point, sure, I think it's strong defense, even if you won every single argument. But the problem is at the point where you don't have a counter interpretation or any defense of kind of like why what you did was good, then I think that when I believe that competing interpretations is true, I think that zero offense compared to the possibility of offense, if they win that there's a risk that fairness is correct, would mean that I would vote on either of the theory shells. This whole resolvability thing, Kevin, I think you could have impacted some of this back to education too from the initial shell. I would have been perfectly fine giving you like this also matters because education, even if like the internal link work wasn't specifically done in the 1NC, which I think you can do. Sure, like he might get like education, not a voter in the 2AR, but like I think that like, you know, I still think that you can try to do more to make it matter more outside of that. Otherwise, like I could go through this like fairness debate, but I think that the 2AR kind of should spend more time here if this is a bigger part of your strategy. Like you're just kind of like resolvability, not fair testing, and like takes out fair testing arcs because even if fairness is voter, like this part's like really fast and like really incoherent compared to like what the 1AR argument was. And I just have a lot of ink in the 2NR like explaining a lot of reasons why fairness is important, and it just seems to make a lot more sense to me. So this whole like Kevin being a moral authority thing, I think there was way too much time spent on this part of the debate. I think that Martino is just right at the point where it's like, it's not a question of like, if you're a person of color, you're a moral authority. It's if you're a moral authority, your opinion should matter more if you're a person of color. So I think that the syllogism, also the Uber ratings things, like this is an overall theme. There were a lot of like inside jokes and things that was just like flying over the heads, and I was just like, it's not mattering to me. Like Uber ratings thing, couldn't care less. Also something else that would have been funny to point out, maybe Martino, is like Uber drivers aren't moral like authority. Like Uber drivers aren't moral authorities, so they can't like lay claim to like whether or not a passenger could be a moral authority. But that might bite into his infinite regressive argument. I don't know. Just trying to play stupid with y'all for a second. All right, but yeah, that's my decision.
Okay. I thought the app strategy was kind of strange because you don't have any testimonies on the theory layer, so how do you have offense if testimony is the way we evaluate theory? So there are a lot of extensions that are like, I actually read cards and my moral authorities would have taken theory reasons into account, right? That's your extension in the 1AR and 2AR. I mean, obviously Martin Luther King did not take this theory shell into account as a reason to negate. So I think there's at least a risk that Kevin is a moral authority because of all the Wang arguments that are pretty much dropped. Like, they're bad, but they're there. So I believe that fairness and education are a voter because of Kevin's testimony, and I can vote on either of the shells. I'm also kind of a sucker for strength of link Wang, which I don't think is answered by the 2AR. That even if I thought you were ahead, there's like pretty good defense on the AF. not much on theory. There's only like a one-liner extended, and it's not. I don't think it takes out fair testing or is really comparative at all. And if it were, I think you have to do that work in the 1AR because that argument was in the 1 and C, so it would be pretty new in the 2. That's all.
Yes, I largely agree with Bob. I think the app is winning the framework debate. I mean, I think the inevitability arguments do resolve like the defense that you're going for, Kevin, on the framework. But I think Jonas is right that there's this theory-friendly substance argument that says I shouldn't evaluate the framework and its implications. I think should be responded to. And the deeper issue, I think, is just if I, as Bob said, if I use the framework as a metric to evaluate theory, I see no path through which that would benefit you. Because the only real testimony proposal with Lang is Kevin's on that debate. So